And then Brian, if you want to start with the mission statement, that'd be great.
All right, we'll do that. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Helping Parents Heal meeting. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and we allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at the Helping Parents Heal meeting is voluntary, and we're here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose children have passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and are not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to become informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from the presentations whatever may benefit you personally. And I'll turn it over to Irene to introduce Isabella.
Actually, I think Elizabeth's going to, yeah.
Yes, I will.
Elizabeth, there you go.
So first of all, I just want to say that I am so grateful to Isabella for being here. And she's coming to us from Pennsylvania right now. And she has been so helpful to Helping Parents Heal throughout the country and throughout the world. And I'm sure that many of you who have interacted with her know how incredible she is. But let me go ahead and read her bio. Isabella is an evidential certified medium, medical intuitive, grief recovery specialist, and remote viewer. Isabella has committed her life to providing healing and comfort to the bereaved. She allows herself to be a pure channel for those in spirit wishing to have a continuing conversation or closure with their loved ones still in the physical. As a medical intuitive, she can locate areas in the body where past or current trauma now manifests as illness and or disease and helps release the symptoms. Isabella is able to see the soul, the highest point in our physical body, and remind her clients of their true soul's purpose in this lifetime. Isabella brings companionship and empathy to every reading. Her approach is matter-of-fact and non-judgmental. As an angel mom herself, Isabella's ability to reconnect parents with their children and other loved ones in spirit provides comfort, healing, and hope. As a spiritualist, Isabella firmly believes that each of our souls survive the transition called death and will reunite again, and endeavors to bring evidence that those in spirit are always with us. To learn more about Isabella, please visit her website at www.thesoulreadingmedium.com. And without further ado, please welcome Isabella Johnson, the Soul Reading Medium.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you so much for letting me be here today.
I am so glad that you are. We feel very grateful to you.
Oh, I feel like the very fortunate one. I know that we're all in this club that nobody wanted to be in and no one ever expected to be in. And I just think it's so important that we help and support and uplift each other wherever possible. So I hope that I can do that for everyone here today.
I'm sure that you will, Isabella. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm just making sure that I'm getting.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Isabella.
Okay.
I think Elizabeth just muted herself.
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to get off so that you can go ahead and talk. But anyway, I think we're okay now. Thank you so much, Isabella, and I'm just so happy you're here.
Oh, thank you. So if anyone has had a reading with me in this form or fashion, Skype or Zoom or even FaceTime, and you just, I don't know if anyone can see me now. I had not particularly thought I would be channeling anyone's children today. That is not something I can usually stop. But as everyone was talking or doing the introduction, you might notice me kind of looking around. There's a lot of people here today. So I will try to stay on topic, but if some messages come through, I don't think anyone will mind that particularly.
Yeah, I think that'd be all good.
Okay. So Elizabeth had asked me to speak today a little bit about the things that are going on with coronavirus and the effect that might be having on everyone. Is a lot of people, or a lot of you, kind of worried or troubled by any of this?
I think we all are to some extent.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that would be very short-sighted to not be. So I don't know if each of you know, I actually tested positive the middle of March, very sick for about 3 weeks and have recovered. I know it's very frightening, and it brought me to a lot of places that I just didn't think that I wanted to look at for a while, or that I thought I had gotten all resolved as far as grief goes. But this has been just a very powerful time for me to kind of reflect on some areas of my own grieving and my own personal experience with losing my daughter and also a husband, and just kind of see where there is some unresolved grief, if any. So I've got some ways, and forgive me if this is a little disjointed. My handwriting is unlegible most of the time, but I'll try to go through a couple of the ways that I feel that were helpful to me, in ways that we can really be a little bit more grounded while all of this is going on. I want to start with this. Just always remember, I don't care when our children have been on the other side, how long it's been. For me, it's 28 years. For some of you, it may be much fresher than that. Even today, 28 years later, I know my daughter is watching. I try to hold myself in a manner that she would be proud and that I'm still her mother. So I really consciously tried to monitor my behavior and actions to match that. So as we're going through this fear, as we're going through all this concern and uncertainty in the world, remembering that you are still a parent to your child that's not here in the same way might shift the outlook of this for you. And please, please, please know that your children are always with us. There seem to be predominantly two groups of people in spirit that never seem to take a step very far away from us, and those are spouses and children. I think children have the bigger connectivity to us, but there is one lady that I talk to every single month who lost her daughter almost a decade ago. And this young child, this is not the way for everybody, so I'm just telling you her experience. This young girl will sit there for the entire hour and talk about every single thing that has happened to her mom. And some of it's very minor. She fell, she hurt her elbow, she dropped her coffee cup, and some of them are big life events. So I just know that they are always with us and always very watchful. And again, you notice me looking down a lot. Don't be surprised if all of this, all of the uncertainty, the COVID-19, it might trigger, like it did in me, some feelings of helplessness. For me, it really brought me back to the first stages of grief after I lost my child, which was a feeling of everything was out of control. I had a lot of shock and disbelief and fear. I was in a lot of fear, and that's not a spot where I'm very comfortable. So I really had to re-monitor and reassess where I was and decide if that's the mind space that I wanted to go into this, or if I would just surrender, so to speak, to the universe. And it's been a practice, but I've been choosing to surrender. Like I said, this is a very good opportunity to look at the places where we might have been afraid to look with our grief, or it was very uncomfortable. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable in all of this. For me, I really didn't deal with anger. That is not a space where I find pleasure or peace at all. As a female of a certain age, I was taught that women, it's not attractive to get angry. There's just not a space where I was comfortable. And so for 28 years, I'd kind of glossed over being angry that my child wasn't here in the same way. I really allowed myself to scream, to cry, to yell at my child, to yell at God, to just feel whatever was coming out in that space. Now, for each of you, it might be slightly different. I was in denial for a really long time. And there are even some days today that it kind of washes over me still. But if you can just take whatever time we have that we're dealing with all of this, and I think it's going to be several months still. I think we're still going to be going through this until February of next year. Not to the extent that we have the last couple of months, but I do think it gets maybe a little bit tougher before it gets better. But then it appears in February, we're just done. So maybe take this year and really focus or put some intention on dealing with the grief, if that's possible. This is not a place where you have to be particularly resilient. It is absolutely okay to have some difficult times, and to just allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. I know for myself, when I don't want to look at something, or when I'm uncomfortable with something, I will avoid it like the plague. I will just pretend like that doesn't exist. Now, that's not very healthy, and it's not very beneficial to anyone. My conflict resolution skills could use some improvement, but I just decided for the rest of this time, until February of next year, I'm just going to surrender into everything and just allow it to be what it is, and know that I'm still very connected to the other side, and source has got me, spirit has got me, God, whatever your comfortable terminology, that is a place where I have been residing. And when I'm feeling that panicked or fear-based, I always look back to source. I think for many of us, for most of us probably, we look in relationships around us, our spouse, our children, friends, parents, for that connection, for that love, for the feeling that we know exists. We just can't specifically find it here. And when I find myself doing that, looking outside of source, God, love, I struggle. So this is a really good opportunity to reconnect with whatever that is for you. If you're not particularly religious, that's fine. Fine, whatever that makes you connected with the higher self, with God, whatever that is to each of you. I really encourage you to kind of explore and do that. I did write a couple of ways, and I stole this yesterday from Patty Ray Avalon, so I will give her credit. She's with the Monroe Institute, and she gave a little lecture yesterday that was just amazing. Ways to really work on the connection with spirit, and this in turn gets you really connected with your child. If you're finding a little difficulty with any of these things, I tried to give enough examples, so hopefully there's one that everybody can grab onto. Meditation, that is a struggle for me, because I think I've got to go to the grocery store, I've got laundry to do, I've got another client. It's a real difficult place for me to be. I have found two different modalities that have allowed me to do it much easier. One is the Monroe Institute, and another is a real interesting, I'll say it, but I'm not an advocate of either of these. I'm just telling you what worked for me. It was the John of God bed. Not John of God, but the bed. And I haven't used that probably several months, but those have been the only two meditative states that work for me. I know it's very successful for a lot of people, meditation. Find something that works for you to meditate. If that doesn't work, try prayer. That is where I'm very comfortable. That's an easy space for me to get in. I have a real conversation with everyone on the other side. And I don't consider prayer just talking with God, whatever that may be. I really consider that, for me, it is just a wider conversation with everyone in spirit. And it really does look like a conversation most days. There are classes and training that you can take. I don't offer that, but I know that there are some people that do. If you find something that works, or that's worked for someone else, give it a try. Here's another thing that works really well for me is nature. I like going outside. I like being around nature and animals. That really grounds me. And for whatever reason, I feel very, very, very connected to source and everyone in spirit. Here's one that I'm not so great about, but I do yoga. I know Elizabeth is amazing at yoga. Any kind of exercise, any way to really incorporate breathing into this seems to be very helpful as well too. The benefits of all of these things are, for me, a decreased fear of death. I mean, after losing a child, there is absolutely no fear of death at all. There's a deeper personal connection, or I was not joking about the bad handwriting. There's a personal validation that you get with each of these things, and maybe not all of them, but with at least one of these, of our immortality. I really strongly believe, we've been here before, my beliefs, you don't have to share them. I don't want to push anything on you. I just know that we're immortal. I believe that we come in these groups and we return in these groups. I know where we've come from, and I know that, let's say I were to fall over right now and leave my body, I know where I would go. I encourage each of you to seek that out for whatever way you get there. For some of us, it's religion, maybe some of these other things. Singing. I cannot sing to save my life. Trust me when I say this is a true story. When my youngest son was 9 months old and I would be singing to him, he literally put his hand over my mouth to stop me singing. It's bad. But I feel surprisingly very connected to the other side when I sing. It just really puts me in this good mind space. As long as no one else hears it, we're all good. There's an increased psychic ability that I think each of us get, and an increased mediumship ability. For most of us, it's not an area where we ever explored or paid much attention to until there was an urgent need to do so, i.e. the loss of a child. We really needed to find some concrete answers. For myself, my entire thought process changed. My entire belief system changed when I lost my daughter. I just thought, this is not what I expected, and how could this be? So doing these things just have a myriad of benefits that really connect us, not only with our children and loved ones in spirit, but also with source, again, whatever that is for you. It also, all of these things help with the life review. This is kind of important. I know that we all do the life review. It is absolutely unavoidable. And for most of us, it's, you know, I would say slanted toward the positive 60% of the time. I had an NDE, near-death experience, a decade plus ago, and I was shocked at how quickly my life review started. Maybe I've shared this story with a couple of you before, but I knew instantly that I would want to come back and do this again, and it was over something that was shockingly small to me at the time. I never gave it another thought, but that was the first thing that came into my mind. And it happened when I was 7 years old. I knew that I'd want to come in and do that differently and better. So I think this is a way to kind of work on our life review here, where we can make amends, where we can decide to do better or really make some concrete changes. Or conversely, you may find areas where you go, wow, I didn't realize I'd done so well. And that's an area of strength for me. And I really want to focus a little bit more on that. So all of these things help with that as well. And there's just a really deep appreciation for life that we get when we're doing that. It seems to accelerate our spiritual growth and our spiritual connectedness. We really see, I seem to connect with my higher self, and I connect with everybody else in spirit better when I'm more mindful of my spiritual practice as well too. So whatever that is for each of you, I would really encourage you to do that. Brian or Elizabeth, I see lots of little notes coming up here really quickly. Does anyone have questions about anything so far?
We don't have any questions so far. We're just having some side conversations about the caring listeners.
Okay. Here are some additional tips for stress. And I know this is, I'm just not even going to lie. This is just a stressful time with all of the unknown. We don't, you know, one surprising benefit that I found for most of the parents I've talked to, or actually most of my clients that I've talked to that are in grief of some kind, before this event happened, most of us, especially losing a child, personally, this lasted for me for a little over a year. I just didn't want to be here anymore. I was happy to stop breathing, to just exit this place. I didn't know that I didn't want to survive this. I didn't want to be here without my child. And I have found consistently across the board, this coronavirus has given us all the insight into how much we still don't want to leave. As much as we're connected with our children, as much as we miss our children, I would be hard pressed to find many people that were like, okay, I'll exit now, and truly genuinely mean that. So I just, it is a benefit of letting us know that, yeah, we still have something to do here. We still want to be here. And I really encourage everybody to focus on the reasons why you're here. The tips for stress: get plenty of rest. Get as much as you're able to rest. Take your time, slow down. Try to eat well. Do not take my advice. I live off Milky Ways, Twix, and Dr. Pepper all day. That is not a great diet. Drink a lot of water. I do that. I wrote be selfish. Selfish has such a negative connotation, as it probably should. So I corrected that with self-care. If there is anything in the world that you can do that makes yourself feel good, or let's use that. That just makes you feel good, do it. I paint my nails all day long, and it comes off, and I'll paint it. That for some reason just makes me feel good. I like to do that. It never stays on long, and it peels off really quickly. These small little things. I like to take baths. I will do that every night and just give myself that time to unwind. If it's a small thing like this, if it's a big thing, whatever you can find to make yourself feel better, the self-care is super important in this. With grief, you'll notice if any of you are in active grief, grief is one of the most selfish things that we can do for ourselves. We don't seem to mind that so much. It really, everything about grief focuses back on the self, of what we feel we no longer have, or what's absent from our life. So consider this just a prolonged area of grief where you can really make some great strides to improvement. Know your limits. For me, I couldn't have the news on anymore. That was something I turned off a while ago, but it was just nonstop this and that. And I just figured if there was anything I needed to know, people in spirit would let me know. So I kind of tuned out to all of that. I don't listen to the news, not on social media very much. Just turned everything off. If it makes you feel better, do it. For me, it just, that was not working. Know your limits on that. So I wrote down exercise really big. Again, this is not something I practice very well. If it's yoga, walking, anything that you do that just makes you move during the day or connects you with your breathing, that seems to really be restorative. And also finding your tribe. If there's even, Helping Parents Heal is a wonderful, I wish they had something like this when I was actively in that process of grief. It's amazing. And I know there are caring listeners. If there is even a small group of 2 or 3 of you, for those of you that are still quarantining like myself, maybe having a text list or something where you can go in and just check in, is everybody doing okay? And then really be comfortable with being honest. No, I'm having a really bad day. This is really tough, or this hour was super bad. And this can go beyond, connecting with someone that has lost their child as well, but including to how we're feeling with everything that's going on around us. And again, highlighting this, surrender control. Surrender all of your control. It's really a fallacy, and I think that's a difficult thing for most of us to swallow. It is for me. That we've never really had much control when we're here. I believe that we really pre-planned a lot of our life events, and trusting that and knowing that I would never want to do anything that would hurt myself to an extent that I couldn't recover from that. There have been events and times when I thought that absolutely true, that I could not survive this again, losing my daughter. But as I learned to surrender the fears and the sadness and the uncertainty, my grief just flies by me. Again, I'm much further out than most of you, but I remember back even 20 years ago that learning to surrender and learning to just be okay with the unknown was a gift for me. And again, that's a practice. That's not something I've mastered. I don't know anyone that's mastered it personally. I hope there are people out there that have, but for me, it's something I still have to work on, usually daily. Let's see. If this is funny, but this is true. If all else fails, I just shavasana on the floor, which is, if any of you don't know, just laying flat on the floor. To me, for some reason, that really just connects me. I'll put my hands on my stomach, one on my heart, and just kind of feel and ground myself back into my body, so to speak. So does anyone have questions about anything that I've said, or any?
I don't think we have any questions so far, Isabella.
Okay.
There's just one actually that I think would be a really nice one to answer that I saw go by.
Okay.
And Linda is asking if you could talk a little bit about what our loved ones experience at the moment of physical death, that they don't feel pain, that they are greeted by loved ones, etc. I think that a lot of people would appreciate that if you could.
Okay.
Maybe...
No, sure. And again, this varies only slightly, and you'll understand that a little bit more when I explain the way that it has been shown to me for 51 years. I will use myself as this example. If anyone's heard this, just forgive me. I had a near-death experience. I was clinically without a heartbeat. They were doing resuscitation on me for at least 5 minutes that are documented. I had an allergic reaction to medication and died. From what I understand now, that was supposed to be a very painful way to go. I felt absolutely nothing, zero. It was the most peaceful, serene moment. And I can speak to what everyone in spirit has told me. And some of these people have left their bodies in ways that you would go, there is no way they did not experience any discomfort or pain or trauma associated with that. I've just never heard that anyone has. That is a true, genuine statement. They will talk about leaving their body, and then they will talk about just being aware of their physical body and their soul, that there is a distinct difference between the two. That is across the board. For some people, there might be the need or desire, especially if they're particularly religious or spiritual. Let's use Christianity, for example. If there's someone who has a lot of Christian beliefs, They are almost always met by Jesus, the Virgin Mary. The same way if you're Muslim, they're met by Muhammad or angels. Same way in Buddhism, there seems to be some figures that come through. Beyond that, it is always family. Now, when I lost my daughter, she was 7. We didn't have a lot of people in spirit, and I was freaked out. Who is going to be watching my child? What is she doing? And immediately, I just saw all of these people that my daughter seemed to know coming up around her. And as we've lost more people over the years, I see that she greets them, but they also now kind of congregate around each other. So their experience seems to be one of a real homecoming. Maybe less than 1% of the time. And I work a lot, so I can tell you this is not just from 1 or 2 readings. This is I work a lot. Some people, and again, it's so minimal, but I will say it because I know all of our minds go to the darkest places. There've been less than 1% of people that seem to just be, I want to get back in my body. I want to get back in my body. That seems to us a really short amount of time, seconds, literally seconds. And then this crowd that's around him, angels, spiritual figures, certainly loved ones and family members, really congregating for it and just allow that person, you're back home now. There's no need for that. And then that seems to just disappear instantly. And then it really does appear to be like a homecoming for everyone, because that's where we've come from. That's where we're going back to. It is home. And I believe that there is such a clear knowing in each of us that that's where we are. I get a little annoyed at some of the paranormal shows that are on where everything seems to be haunted and everyone's in a really bad spot and, trying to make everyone's life miserable. I have never seen anything like that ever, 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 ever. I've never, and I see people in spirit, so I know they exist, but I've just never found anybody's really deranged or bothered or angry or vindictive in any of that. So that annoys me a little bit, because that's just not anyone's experience in spirit. That transition period where there's a real reconnection with family, I call it like the family reunion. As best as I understand, it lasts about 72 hours. Some people it's a little more and some people it's a little less, but it really is going to some big reunion. And during that time, there is also such an acute awareness with our newly over there loved ones of our grief, our pain, and our dealing with this. But they are very aware. They detach slightly from that at that time, because they just know, oh, everything is okay. Everything has always been okay. There was nothing ever to worry about. There was nothing that was ever wrong. This all was unfolding the way that it should. So they're acutely aware in that period and seem to really be very close to us, especially for those of us who lost a child. You may have seen that child the first couple of days in a real strong way. You might have had a dream visitation from them. Some people report physical sensation. Some people report, I don't have anything happening. So it really varies for everyone. But that seems to be almost universally everyone's experience. Did I answer that well enough? I don't.
Yeah, I think you did.
Suicide, same for suicide. I just saw that appears to be such, I'm going to choose my words here carefully. There is no judgment. There is no hell that I've ever seen. And again, I added it up last year. I think I've done like 700,000 readings that I could kind of go back and go, yeah, boom, 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 boom. I've never seen any of those places. They are, I recognize that they take responsibility for their passing just because they kind of show me this ring around them. That's just the way that it looks for me. There's no actual ring around your loved one. And they really seem to be kind of cocooned and buffeted and slowly allowed, or yeah, allowed would be a good way to put it, slowly kind of allowed to deal with the reasons why one might choose that as an exit. I've never, ever, ever seen anything punitive for that. And I know they have just the same ability to connect with us as how we leave here is really just a way to get out of this vehicle. We put so much connotation and importance on what that looked like. And especially with suicide, because there's so many unanswered questions. And for those of us left behind, we're like, what did we miss? What could we do? The woulda, shoulda, coulda, if only, what ifs. That bargaining stage lasts a very long time. I think even more so than those that passed a different way. But everybody in spirit, they're like, oh my God, we're home. It's like, it's very different than one might expect for them. So their experience is exactly the same as I understand it. There does seem to be that little cocooned or buffeting period. Not for everybody. I had someone today that lost a loved one to suicide, and it was 3 weeks ago. And this guy was like, "Yeah, you know, I'm fine." This was exactly it was informative to me as well. So I have never seen that it really matters how we leave our physical body.
Thank you. We do have a few questions, Isabella.
Okay.
Anna asks, what ideas can you give when we can't get out of bed or function on a day-to-day basis?
Very familiar with that. Really super familiar with that. For me, I just stayed in bed, and I give me a second to think of how to put this. I mean, listen, that the first year to 2 years, it's just walking through a fog, and I will be very upfront and very honest with everyone. I was extremely suicidal for a while after my child left, and I just thought, I don't want to do this. I don't know how to do this. The pain just never seemed to leave. It was overpowering and you all know. I mean, you know what this feels like. And I slowly kind of begin to come out of that fog. I'm grateful for the people that I had around me during that time. They were watchful of me. They were monitoring me to some extent. And I'm grateful for that, because I don't think I would have the awareness to do that at this point in my life when I have those tough days, and I still have them. I usually give myself a time limit for that now, but listen, I am really far out from this than most of you people. That is, I just have a lot more time under my belt than most of you. I will kind of give myself an hour or 45 minutes of wallowing time. And I don't think it's wallowing. That's not an accurate way to say it, but that's pretty accurate of what I do. And then I will just say, okay, get up and do more. And there are some days when really I just find it a struggle and a challenge to leave my bed. My daughter's birthday and her angel day, same day. August is pretty much a wash for me. I do the best that I can, but there are some moments that are really challenging in that. I think just understanding, I just want to be honest in all this. I'm making it so logical, and I know when you're in it, you're just not logical. It just feels like a tsunami of grief and pain. Compassion, prayer, meditation, begging your child, begging source, begging spirit to just get you through the day. I'm not above doing that either. And certainly mental health professionals, your medical doctor. I know that even that's kind of changed now, but there are lots of resources out there helping parents heal. Reaching out and just being honest is probably my best advice to each of you. I try to be honest and vulnerable in these things because there's not a lot that I haven't experienced with this.